Mum kicked me out at 17 after my stepsister falsely accused me of assault. Now, after 10 years, she's homeless and begging for my help, but refuses to admit what they did. Hello, I'm posting this because I need to get it out and I don't know where else to put it. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons. I'm 27 now, male. The events I'm going to describe started unfolding when I was much younger. But the main incident happened when I was 17. My biological parents divorced when I was 9 years old. It wasn't amicable. There were arguments about assets, custody schedules, the usual things that happened. Custody ended up being primarily with my mother. I saw my dad on alternating weekends and some holidays. My mother remarried about 3 years after the divorce when I was 12. She married a man, my stepdad, let's call him SD, who had 2 children of his own from a previous marriage. They were close to my age, a stepbrother, SB, a year older than me, and a stepsister, SS, same age as me. So, suddenly, I went from being an only child in my mum's house to having 2 step-siblings. SD moved into our house, the one my mum got in the divorce settlement. It was a 3-bedroom place initially. My mum and SD took the master bedroom. I had 1 room, and SB and SS were supposed to share the 3rd, larger bedroom. This arrangement caused friction from the start. They complained about sharing, about the room size, about living in my house. SD eventually converted the small home office downstairs into a makeshift bedroom for SB, after about 6 months of constant complaining from them, mostly directed at my mother, who usually gave in. SS kept the larger bedroom upstairs next to mine. Living together was never smooth. SD tried to enforce a one-happy family dynamic that felt forced. He wasn't overtly hostile towards me, but he clearly favored his own children. My mum seemed caught in the middle. She often tried to plate SB and SS, sometimes at my expense. Little things built up. My belongings would go missing from my room or common areas, only to reappear later in SBS or SS's possession, usually broken or used. When I brought this up, the response was usually that I was being sensitive, or that I must have misplaced things, or that SBS had just borrowed them. My mum rarely backed me up. She'd sigh and tell me to try harder to get along, or to keep my things more secure. School events were another area of tension. My mum and SD attended things for SB and SS, but often claimed scheduling conflicts for my events, even simple parent-teacher meetings. My dad attended everything he could on his end, but he lived about an hour away, making weekday events difficult. SD made comments about my academic performance compared to his kids, usually highlighting areas where they supposedly did better, even if it wasn't factually accurate. He once remarked during dinner that it was a shame my grades weren't as naturally strong as SBS. Even though I consistently had a higher GPA, my mum didn't counter him. The step-siblings themselves treated me with indifference, bordering on contempt when SD and my mum weren't around. They excluded me from activities, made snide comments about my dad, my appearance, my hobbies. They often presented a different face to their father and my mother, acting polite, or at least neutral when they were present. I learned quickly that complaining directly about SB or SS only resulted in me being labeled a troublemaker or unable to adjust. My mum told me several times I needed to be less solitary and make more effort with them. My biological father passed away suddenly from a heart attack when I was 15. This was devastating. He was my main support outside of the tense household environment. His death also meant the weekend visits stopped, and I was in the house with my mum, SDSB, and SPELS, full-time except for holidays with my paternal grandparents. The atmosphere worsened after his passing. It felt like any buffer I had was gone. My mum was grieving, but also seemed overwhelmed. SD, SB, and SS offered minimal condolences. SB actually made a comment about how at least now custody weekends won't interfere with family plans within a couple of weeks of the funeral. I reported this to my mum, who told SB it was inappropriate, but there were no real consequences beyond that brief verbal correction. My paternal grandparents offered for me to live with them after my dad died, but my mum refused, saying she needed me there and it wouldn't look right. Over the next 2 years, things escalated slowly. SB got into minor trouble at school, things like skipping class or getting caught smoking. SD usually downplayed these incidents. SS became very focused on social status and often made remarks comparing our family's finances or possessions negatively to her friends' families. I retreated more into my schoolwork and hobbies, spending most of my time in my room or at the friend's home. The summer I turned 17, my mum and SD planned a week-long anniversary trip, leaving me SB, now 18, and SS 17, at home alone. My paternal grandparents offered to have me stay with them, but my mum insisted it would be fine, that we were old enough, and that leaving me behind while SB and SS stayed would cause unnecessary drama. She left emergency contacts, money for food, and instructions. The first couple of days were quiet. SB and SS mostly ignored me, had friends over, ordered pizza. I kept to myself. On the third night, they had a larger group of friends over. There was loud music, drinking. I saw beer cans and liquor bottles. They must have gotten someone to buy for them. I stayed in my room with the door locked. Around midnight, the noise died down as most of their friends left. Later that night, maybe 2 a.m., I heard a commotion downstairs. I stayed put initially. Then I heard SS scream my name, followed by shouting. Against my better judgment, I unlocked my door and went to the stairs. SB and SS were in the hallway downstairs. SS was crying, holding her arm. SB was shouting that I had pushed her down the stairs. I hadn't left my room. I told them that. SB advanced towards the stairs, yelling accusations. SS was sobbing, saying I came out of my room when she was walking past, yelled something about the noise, and shoved her. She claimed she fell down the last few steps. It was completely fabricated. I hadn't been near the hallway. I suspect she likely tripped or fell while drunk or fooling around with SB or one of their remaining friends. I think 1 or 2 were still there, but hiding or staying quiet in the living room. SB grabbed the house phone and called SD and my mum. He put the phone on speaker. I heard him tell them, voice shaking with fake rage, that I had attacked SS, pushed her down the stairs because I was angry about them having friends over. SS added, crying that her arm hurt badly and she thought I broke it. She said I had been muttering about them all night. My mum got on the phone. She didn't ask for my side. She immediately started yelling at me, calling me vicious, asking how I could do such a thing. I tried to explain I was in my room, that they were lying. She cut me off. She said she knew I was jealous of SB and SS, that I always had been. She called me a failure who couldn't stand seeing them happy. She told SD she was right, that I had deep-seated issues. SD's voice came on .com but cold, telling me I needed to face consequences. He said they were cutting the trip short and would be home by morning. My mum got back on and told me to pack a bag. She said I was not spending another night under that roof. She said when they got back, I needed to be gone. She explicitly stated I was no longer welcome in her house. I asked where I was supposed to go. She told me she didn't care, that I should have thought of that before I assaulted my stepsister. Then she hung up. SB and SS looked smug. SB told me to get packing. I went back to my room, locked the door, and sat there numb. I didn't pack immediately. I couldn't process it. I heard SB and SS talking and laughing quietly downstairs after a while. Around 4 a.m., realizing my mum was serious, I packed a backpack with clothes. My laptop, phone charger, wallet, and some important documents I kept in my room. I didn't have much money, maybe $50. I waited until I heard SB and SS go to their rooms, presumably to sleep. I slipped out the back door around 5 a.m. before sunrise. I didn't know where else to go, so I started walking towards the bus station. It was about a 5 meters walk. I used a payphone at the station. My phone battery was low and I wanted to save it to call my paternal grandparents. I explained briefly what happened, that I was accused of something I didn't do and kicked out. They didn't hesitate. My grandfather told me to stay put and that he would drive down immediately to get me. It was about a 2-hour drive for him. I waited inside the station, watching the doors. My grandfather arrived around 8 a.m. He didn't press for details right away, just got me in the car, bought me breakfast at a diner on the way back to their place. When we got to their house, my grandmother was waiting. I told them the full story. They believed me. They were angry at my mother, but seemed resigned, saying she'd changed after my dad died and after she remarried. They let me stay in their spare room. My grandfather helped me retrieve the rest of my essential belongings from my mum's house a few days later. He called ahead. My mum refused to be there. Esty met him at the door, let him in to grab my things, mostly clothes, books, sentimental items related to my dad. According to my grandfather, Esty was cold and formal. Didn't ask about me, just wanted him out quickly. SB and SS were apparently not home. My mum never called me. She didn't try to contact me through my grandparents either. My stepsister's arm wasn't broken. My grandfather heard from a neighbor it was just bruised. The story they told neighbors and family friends was that I had anger issues and assaulted SS unprovoked. My grandparents helped me enroll in the local high school near them for my senior year. It was disruptive, but I managed. They weren't wealthy, living on pensions and social security, but they supported me fully. I got a part-time job after school and on weekends to help with my expenses and save for college. I finished high school. My mum did not attend my graduation. I had zero contact with her, SD, SB, or SS. The 10 years following that incident were focused on building my own life, completely separate from my mother and her new family. I stayed with my grandparents through community college, working multiple jobs. They helped as much as they could, but finances were tight. I eventually transferred to a state university, taking out loans and continuing to work. I studied computer science. After graduating, I got a job. I moved to a different city for the job. I worked hard, paid off my student loans aggressively, and eventually started doing well financially. I bought my own condo a couple of years ago. My grandparents are getting older, but are still managing in their home. I help them out financially now, and visit often. They remain my only real family connection. Throughout these 10 years, I maintained absolute no contact with my mother, SD, SB, or SS. I blocked their numbers early on. I ignored any attempts they might have made through mutual acquaintances or extended family emails that sometimes slip through filters. To me, that part of my life was over. But about 3 weeks ago, my doorbell rang late in the evening around 9 p.m. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the peephole and I didn't recognize the person immediately. She looked disheveled. When I opened the door, I have a security chain. I realized it was my mother. I hadn't seen her in a decade. She looked much older than her actual age. She's in her late 50s, her clothes were worn, looked somewhat torn at the sleeve. She was thin. She started talking immediately, her voice strained. She said she found my address through some distant relative she contacted. She told me she had made terrible mistakes. She explained in a rambling way that things had gone bad for her. SD had apparently lost his job a few years back. They burned through their savings. SB had ongoing issues, implied legal or addiction problems. She wasn't specific. That drained them financially. SS had moved out years ago and wanted little to do with them, especially now they had money problems. Apparently, SD left my mother about 6 months ago, moved in with his sister in another state. She lost the house, the one I grew up in, to foreclosure. She claimed she had been staying in shelters or with reluctant acquaintances for the past few weeks. She said she regretted how she treated me, that she knew she was wrong back then. She said she was desperate and had nowhere else to turn. She asked if I could help her, specifically asking if she could stay with me for a while, just until she got back on her feet. She was crying by this point. I didn't let her inside. I stood at the door with the chain on. After listening to her, I told her I wouldn't let her stay with me. Her face fell, but I said I might be willing to help her under one specific condition. She asked what it was. I told her the condition was this. She needs to arrange a meeting. At this meeting, she, SB, and SS must attend. SD's presence is not required. At this meeting, in my presence, SB and SS must provide a written, signed statement retracting the accusation they made against me when I was 17. They must acknowledge they lied about the assault. Additionally, my mother must verbally acknowledge that she knew or strongly suspected they were lying at the time, or at least knew my character well enough to know I wouldn't do that, and that she chose to believe them and abandoned me anyway. She must state clearly she knows I did not assault SS. I told her I wanted to record this entire interaction. If they fulfill this condition completely, I will then discuss providing her with limited temporary financial assistance to secure basic housing like a deposit and first month's rent for a small apartment, and maybe connect her with job resources. I will not provide ongoing support, and she will never live with me. She looked stunned. She started to protest, saying getting SB and SS to agree would be impossible, that they wouldn't do it, that SB is hard to even locate sometimes. She asked if I could just help her a little bit now out of kindness. I repeated the condition written signed retraction from SBN and SS verbal recorded acknowledgement and apology from her detailing her actions and knowledge. No fulfillment, no help. That's it. I told her to contact me if she manages to arrange it. Then I closed the door. It's been 3 weeks. I haven't heard from her. I kind of expected that, but I keep replaying the conversation. Would I be there if I stick to this condition, knowing it likely means she gets no help from me and might genuinely be on the street? Update 1. It's been about 4 weeks since my original post. Thank you to everyone who read and commented or sent messages. I read everything. I didn't expect that volume of response. A lot of people shared opinions. Many supported my condition. Some thought it was too harsh. Others suggested different approaches. I appreciate people taking the time to clarify a few points people raised. Why no police back then? Some asked why I didn't involve police when the accusation happened. I was 17, completely blindsided, and my own mother instantly believed the lie and told me to get out. Calling the police felt impossible and terrifying. Who would they believe? My word against 3 people, SB, SS, and likely a friend of theirs if pushed, with SS being a woman and my own parent backing them. It seemed like a way to make things even worse for myself at that moment. My priority was finding a safe place to go, which was my grandparents. Grandparents' role. My grandparents were and are supportive. They believed me without question back then. They were angry with my mother, but didn't force contact or reconciliation. They respected my decision to go no contact. They did express sadness about the situation over the years, but never pressured me. I have discussed the current situation with them. They support my decision and my condition. Though my grandmother expressed worry about my mother's well-being, which is typical for her kind nature. They agree the condition addresses the core injustice. SD's situation. I don't have many details about SD beyond what my mother briefly mentioned. Losing his job, financial struggles, leaving my mother. I have no interest in his situation beyond how it impacted my mother showing up at my door. He played a role in enabling his kids and supporting my mother's decision to kick me out. So, his absence now doesn't generate sympathy from me. My financial status, some people made assumptions. I am financially stable, not wealthy. I live comfortably, but carefully. Buying a condo was a major goal achieved through years of saving. Any help I offer would be carefully budgeted, and definitely not a blank check. The condo is a 1-bedroom place. Having someone else live here is not feasible or desired. Reading the comments and thinking it over solidified my stance. The core issue isn't just that my mother needs help now. It's the reason our relationship ended and why she feels entitled to ask me for help after 10 years of silence that followed her explicit rejection and false accusation support. The framing wasn't a small teenage spat. It was a deliberate act that led to my homelessness at 17 immediately following the loss of my father. Her immediate belief in the lie and her cruel words, "fucking failure," were choices she made. SD, SB, and SS also made their choices. The condition I set wasn't about revenge, though some commenters framed it that way. It was about establishing a baseline of truth. Without acknowledging what actually happened and their roles in it, there's no foundation for any kind of interaction, let alone me providing material support. Her turning up destitute doesn't erase the past or her actions, it just changes the power dynamic. Helping her without addressing the fundamental lie and betrayal feels like accepting her narrative, implicitly forgiving actions that were never apologized for, and allowing her SB and SS to maintain the falsehood. I decided sticking to the condition was the only path forward that respected my own history and boundaries. As I mentioned, 3 weeks passed after I initially told her the condition and closed the door. Then, about a week ago, so roughly 3 weeks after her first appearance, she contacted me. She didn't call. I received an email from an address I didn't recognize, but the name matched hers. The email was brief. She said she had spoken to SS. She claimed SS felt bad about how things happened back then, but was unwilling to put anything in writing or attend a meeting. She claimed SS was worried about legal trouble or dredging up the past. My mother then wrote that she hadn't been able to contact SB at all. She didn't know his current phone number or whereabouts reliably, only that he supposedly floated between acquaintances in another part of the state. My mother then reiterated her difficult situation. She mentioned staying at another shelter that had strict time limits, which was running out. She asked again if I could reconsider, maybe offer a smaller amount of help without involving SB and SS. She suggested maybe just she and I could meet, and she would apologize privately. I replied to the email the next day. My response was also brief. I reiterated the original condition precisely. A meeting with her SB and SS present. Written signed statements from SB and SS retracting the assault claim and admitting they lied. Her own verbal recorded acknowledgement of her role and knowledge, including the specific phrases are required about knowing I didn't do it and choosing to abandon me anyway. I stated clearly that partial fulfillment, for example, just her apologizing or just SS expressing vague regret via email, was not acceptable. The conditions stood as stated. Until and unless she could confirm she had arranged exactly that, there was nothing further to discuss regarding assistance. She replied almost immediately to my email. The tone changed. She wrote that I was being cruel and unreasonable. She accused me of wanting to humiliate her and SBS. She said I clearly inherited my father's stubborn streak. An interesting comment given her previous silence about him. She wrote that she should have known I wouldn't help, that I was cold. She ended the email by saying she wouldn't contact me again and that I could live with myself knowing I'd turned my back on my own mother in her time of need. I did not reply to that second email. I read it, archived it, and haven't heard anything since. That was about 6 days ago. So, the outcome is that contact has ceased again. She explicitly rejected the condition and chose to frame me as cruel rather than attempt to meet it or acknowledge why it was put in place. Nothing has changed regarding my stance. The condition remains unmet. No help has been provided. Update to it has now been 6 months since my last update and about 7 months since my mother first appeared at my door. Following the email exchange detailed in my previous update where my mother refused the condition and accused me of cruelty, there was complete silence for several months. I had no contact from her, nor from SB, SS, or SD. I continued with my life as usual. Work, visiting my grandparents, managing my own affairs. Around 2 months ago, so roughly 4 months after the last email exchange, I received a message request on a social media platform I rarely use. It was from my stepsister, SS. I almost ignored it, but decided to see what it said. The message was short. She wrote that she heard I had seen our mother and that Mum told her about my demands. SS wrote that she doesn't really remember that night clearly, referring to the night of the accusation, but that she regrets things got so messed up. She then said she is married now, has a young child, and is trying to build her own life. She stated she wouldn't sign any statement or attend any meeting that could cause problems for her family or her relationship with her husband, who apparently doesn't know all the details of her past. She finished by saying she hopes I am doing well, but asked me not to contact her again. I did not reply to SS's message. Her vague non-memory and focus on protecting her current life, while understandable from her perspective, confirmed her unwillingness to take any responsibility or provide the required retraction. It reinforced the correctness of my decision to set the condition I did. If she truly regretted it, she had the opportunity to act. She chose not to. Regarding my mother, I have limited third-hand information, mostly via my grandparents, who occasionally hear fragments from distant relatives or old neighbors. The picture is patchy. It seems she spent some time in shelters, then possibly stayed briefly with a cousin of hers several hours away. That arrangement apparently didn't last long. The most recent snippet my grandmother heard suggested she might be living in a rooming house or some form of low-income subsidized housing, possibly working a minimum wage job. There's no confirmation of this, just rumors. She has made no further attempts to contact me directly. SB remains unaccounted for as far as I know. No one in the family channels my grandparents have access to seems to know his definite location or situation. Reinforcing what my mother claimed about being unable to contact him, SD is also out of the picture, seemingly having no contact with my mother since leaving her. There haven't been major upheavals in my own life in the past 6 months. Work is stable. I saw my grandparents for Thanksgiving. They are doing okay, though my grandfather is having some minor health issues we are monitoring. They asked if I'd heard anything more from my mother. I shared the brief interaction with SS, and they agreed it showed no real change or remorse from that side of the family. So the situation stands as it did after the last update. The condition for help remains unmet. My mother, after refusing the terms, has sought assistance elsewhere, or is managing through other means, however difficult. SS confirmed her unwillingness to participate in rectifying the past. SB remains absent. My no-contact boundary with all of them remains firmly in place. Nothing has been resolved in terms of family relationships, nor did I expect it to be. My life continues on the path I built after being forced out at 17. The door remains closed unless the specific non-negotiable condition regarding the retraction and acknowledgement is fully met. Given SS's response and SB's disappearance, the probability of that happening seems effectively zero. That is the current state of affairs. I don't anticipate posting further updates unless something significant and unexpected changes which I do not foresee. Thank you again to those who read and offered perspectives earlier. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more story like this.